you for coming. My name is Tanuja Goulet. I'm a doctoral resident in the Old Town Clinic, a couple blocks away. And that means I'm a licensed acupuncturist who works at the clinic, and I'm studying in the doctoral program, studying beyond the master's degree, which is the entry-level degree for work in this field. And it's not nothing at all. It's a pretty significant degree. And some people are interested in studying some more, like myself. So, I'm here to talk about chrysanthemum and goji berry tea. And you're tasting the tea, but this tea has so many more dimensions, so I will talk about them. First, a poem about chrysanthemum. This tea itself is just with the chrysanthemum has been drunk for so long, and so people write about it in so many different ways. So this poem is tasting chrysanthemum tea of old, this flower of longevity. A man of 80 years picks and sips, assiduous, teaching his frosty beard to turn raven black. So there's this idea that if you take certain herbs over a long period of time, that you will gain back things of youth, such as dark hair. You don't have to have gray hair anymore. And it's because of the herb properties are helping to nourish the body. So here's what the chrysanthemum that you're drinking looks like. And there's a lot of different varieties of chrysanthemum. The one that is the tea, that used for tea in Chinese medicine. And cuisine is this one. So I mentioned the idea of drinking a certain tea over a long period of time for maintaining health. And this is very much something that you find people talking about in China. And so I'm wondering what kind of things do we think really maintain over the long term in the United States? What maintains our well-being, or what do people say that you need to do in the United States for old age? Anything?
A healthy diet.
A healthy diet?
Exercise.
Yeah. Exercise, healthy diet. I was also, when I found this picture, in my pictures, I was thinking about how we think we need to save money, save for retirement. That's something that we talk about in the United States, even more so than diet, about persisting in, add to retirement all the time, weekly, monthly. And that's kind of the way that I think these teas are looked at, even more so than diet, because in the United States we don't yet have that idea that diet is actually adding and accruing something for you. So, like we do with money accounts. So here's just another example, a couple examples of herbs in China that people also take to accrue longevity and maintain good health. And this is definitely bizarre looking. It's little caterpillars that have grown fungus on them, and each of the little spikes you see is a caterpillar, and they're tied together in bundles. And it's called cordyceps. So it's a very prized herb. It's in these expensive display cases and shown in a very pretty display. Are you here for the talk on chrysanthemum and goji berries? Are you here for the presentation on chrysanthemum and goji berries? You're welcome to come in and have some tea. So we're talking about tea that people can have to maintain health throughout their entire life into old age. This is another herb that people drink. It's called Wu, and this one actually I found potted in a mountain in China. Some people had dug it out of the ground and put it in pots to show, I guess. And this, you can see the big root on it, and it's a big root that when you eat the root, it helps turn your hair black. But again, you have to have it, like the chrysanthemum tea in that poem, every day for a long period of time. So, who discovered all these herbs? Welcome. Come in, have some tea. There's this legendary character named Shen Nong, and he's called the Heavenly Farmer. And he existed some number of thousands of years ago. Nobody quite knows how many thousands of years ago. And this character means the heavenly part, and this is the farmer. And so he really helped people. He tasted all the herbs, and you can see in this picture here, he's holding some vegetable in his hand or an herb, and he's tasting it. So he tasted everything to find out its medicinal properties. And then he helped the people learn about that. And so one of the books you can find is his Materia Medica, the Shandong Classic of Herbs, and read what he wrote about the herbs too. And he's always depicted with these horns on his head, so he's definitely, not quite human figure. And he's still, very well known about even today. So when I was in China in the spring, I was in a brand new hospital observing, and in the hospital they put a 5-story high metal relief mural of all different figures of Chinese medicine and history. And at the top there's a yin-yang symbol and DNA strands, and at the bottom, kind of overlapping by the escalator going up, is actually Shandong. So here he is holding some herbs and holding a pickaxe to get the herbs out of the ground, and he's got the little horns on his head. Unfortunately, he's behind the escalator. I wish he was out of it so we could have a better picture. And I think he's carrying things he's harvested on his back. So, welcome. This is the chrysanthemum again. And in Chinese it's called Juhua, and this is the characters for it. This is the word Ju that is used specifically for flower, and this is the word for flower, so hua. And then the other one we're talking about today is the goji berries. And if you want, I can send you these writings also. The goji berries, these are dried up blueberries. You've probably seen them in the grocery store. Maybe you have or maybe you haven't. They're very red, kind of like raisins, but very red. And usually harder than raisins when they're dried. And then this is, again, general, specific terms to the goji berry itself. And this is the word that's used for any berry or seed. So is that it? Just these two to make a tea. I will tell you some more about why they combine this way to make the tea. So there's more. So there's just these basics of Chinese medicine theory. Some of you have heard this before, some of you haven't. We start off with the basic duality, yin and yang theory. And so everything contains yin and yang, something very light, airy, hot even, and then something cool, moistening, and heavier. So the seed, like the goji berry, is heavier, and the chrysanthemum is lighter, so more yang, and the heavier one, more yin. But then we involve the 5-phase theory. So it gets a little more complex, more based on earth, more things that we actually experience on earth. So we have elements of fire, earth, metal, water, and wood that everything also contains. So I'll be going into what those are for each of the tea components today. And just another aspect of the elements I just went over is just flavors. So I'll also be talking about the flavors of the tea. The chrysanthemum and the gojis each have specific flavors and specific temperatures, as you can see on the left, the warm and cool. So again, when something is warmer or hot, it has very different properties than something that's cool. And I gave a little example of something that could be a pretty big contrast between the two. An apple is cool and moistening, and lamb is quite hot. It's one of the hottest meats that we know of. Sorry, I don't think there's a category for hamburgers. And then we're also able to take those same things, like the lamb, and put it into another place in this system of 5. So the lamb goes down and becomes associated with the flavor of salty and with the kidney. And I have some other representative. Beer is said to be sour. So basically, in Chinese nutrition, after all that theory right there that you just saw, you really want to be harmonizing and eating what's right for you and what goes with the season. And so you'll see how these two, the goji berry and chrysanthemum, do that all year round for people. But other foods specifically go with certain seasons and go with certain people more. So the chrysanthemum is said to be sweet, slightly bitter, and cold. And it goes to the organs of the lung and the liver. And so it has so many different things going on. How does this all go together? So I put the lung on this cycle of 5 and the liver on this cycle of 5. But it's also sweet. The sweet's over here. How come this goes with these two? So we're looking for balance. And so that's why we have the herb goes to these two places, but it has a flavor of a different place. And so you can start to see even in one herb how there's some harmony created. And for the goji berries, they're said to be sweet and they don't have a temperature. And they go to 3 organs, the liver, the lung, and the kidney. And are the liver, lung, or kidney any of them go with the sweet flavor either? No. So again, we're achieving some balance by going to these organs, but having flavor over here. So all together, again, when we put the two together, they're sweet, but they have this overlap of going to all these organs. So it's kind of a nice balancing mixture. So what are the benefits? The idea is that the tea, when you drink something, when you have a food in Chinese medicine, that it goes into the body with the flavor and with its nature, and it affects those organs that we talked about. So it has more of an affinity for certain parts of the body than others, and it helps balance and adjust those organs in particular. And that's where you get the benefits. Herbs are made to benefit and help people's health. And so certain ones have been found over so much time and by the character we talked about earlier, Shen Nong, to benefit people's health in particular ways. So the chrysanthemum itself has a benefit of giving you the energy, the qi, the vitality of 4 seasons. And that's one of its first benefits, but there's several I'll go over. So the chrysanthemum is said to start growing in the winter time, even. And like, I think a lot of flowers grow in the spring or the summer, but chrysanthemum is said to start growing in the winter and then grow throughout the year. And it's still blooming in the fall, and that's partly why there's a chrysanthemum festival here in the garden pretty soon. Is it in November? It's in November. So if you want longevity, you need to be in harmony with all the seasons. And so that's why this is a really good tea to drink in all the seasons and throughout a long period of time. The goji berry also has affinity for growing at all times because it's a very resilient plant. And I've noticed, because I've tried to grow goji berry in my garden, that it grows kind of like mint. Does anybody have any feeling about what mint does when it grows?
Takes over.
It what?
Takes over.
It takes over. And also, what happens when mint seems like it's dying? And it comes back. And then it takes over. It goes, so like you think you've got some out, but then it keeps coming back. So if you want the resilience of an herb, then you would choose to have herbs that are so resilient that grow again and again. And maybe you don't want to take over a whole garden yourself, but you want to be ample. You want to have a lot of bountiful health. And another thing that these herbs are like, kind of like the turtle. So here's a picture I took in China at a temple where they had a market going on, and here's a special turtle that's alive, and it's sitting inside this glass case, and people are giving it money, and they're just so excited to look at it. So people really, really like turtles because they live for so long themselves, and they breed very slowly, and these properties are all associated with longevity. And so if we can be more like a turtle, then we have better health. This tea also really benefits the eyes. Both herbs in this tea benefit the eyes. The goji berries look like the shape of little eyes, and the chrysanthemums and lots of flowers are like bursting open like an eye. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that pretty soon. So the eyes are closely associated with the liver in Chinese medicine. And there's two aspects of the liver that you can really help. The part of the liver that wants to go, the liver energy wants to go up and be bursting. And it also doesn't have enough of an anchor to stay in the body. So the goji berry helps provide an anchor, or the yin, the more quiet and cool place. And the chrysanthemum helps clear out some of the heat and wind that you notice when there's a lot of liver yang moving around. It's very light and flying away. And so if you are experiencing any of these things, you might be experiencing like eyes that are hot and itchy, or you might be experiencing a headache or feeling full in your head. And it is said that the liver is rooted or mothered by the kidney. And you can remember that wheel of the 5, the liver's on the left and the kidney is just underneath it. So the kidney supports the liver. And so this combination of herbs with the goji berry and the chrysanthemum goes even further to really support the kidney also. And that's part of longevity, being associated with the water and things like turtles that live in the water, and being able to live a long life because you're supporting that aspect of the body. So if you have low back pain, or your hair is starting to get gray, or anything else that you notice up here, you can talk to a Chinese medicine provider about what you can do to nourish the kidney. And you can also drink this tea every day. This tea also helps the lung. And it helps the lung in multiple ways. Because it's very light and it's a flower, it has to do with helping the wind, as I discussed, with the liver, but that also helps the lungs. And that's in multiple ways. You can help get rid of colds, because colds are said to be like wind. You can also help support just the movement of the lung. When you're coughing or something, it's because the lung's not moving. When you sneeze, you might notice something feels like it's moving again in your body. And a light flower can help you do that, especially one that goes to the lung more, like the chrysanthemum. And then at the same time, the goji berries help support the lung because they help support the other aspects of the body that balance the lung. I hope you can start to see that there's a system of balancing, and it doesn't have to be something that is specifically acting a certain way on one thing, that it actually works to balance. So I'd like to do a group exercise. If you could just turn to someone that you don't know, if you're okay with that, and just think back to last week when it got really windy for a day or two, and just share what you felt like on that day. What the weather was like for you. Did you notice anything in your body, like maybe you felt a little bit tense or cold or anything else? Do you feel like you're getting sick? So go ahead, I'll give you a minute.
Okay. watching myself, you know, try to get a barrier, saying, oh, it's coming, the gray, and I got depressed, just thinking about it. And then the sun came out, and
Windows open,